All right, the next thing I want to share with you while that is thinking about going, or if it is going, is make sure that you click somewhere in the desktop background so that instead of it saying Premiere Pro here, it says Finder. And when you see Finder, go to Go, and then go to Computer, and then go to External Mac Hard Drive Yosemite, and go to Classroom in a Book.
Wait, what? You gotta chill.
This is where
Lost you at your
Sorry.
All right, go to Go. Finder Go. This is how on a Mac you get to the root drive. Okay, so go to Computer. We're getting off of all this because here's the thing, they couldn't install all these files under each of your identities so that it would load once you got in here, so it has to be on the root file of each Mac. So go Computer. Now your options are the hard drive, HD, the network, or remote disk. None of those, this one is the one you want. It's not really external, it's here. Double click on that.
Which one is it?
So this is your root part of it, and you all should have a Classroom in a Book
Ours just isn't.
folder.
Ours is HD2. That's what it's
Classroom.
Mine is, we don't have, it's not named.
Okay, yeah, that would be the one then, right? Classroom in a Book?
We're
Yep.
going to go on Mac.
Okay, so it's different from what mine says? So it's,
go to Macintosh.
it's the hard drive, yep. Yeah. Mac HD means Mac hard drive. So did everybody get to it? Classroom in a Book. Okay, these are the 6.67 gigabytes worth of files that in a perfect world you're going to get on a separate jump drive or whatever. But what we're going to do right now, because again, if somebody opens lesson 1 and renames it Duck, you just did it on the root that is going to hurt everybody somehow is what they're telling me. So let's grab, no, let's not. Let's wait till we get to it in the book. This is just where it is. We'll talk about it in a minute. I don't want to get too confused. So close that down. That's where the files are right now. All right, Premiere Pro is hopefully still, or has loaded for you. I'm still spinning, I guess.
Yeah, it had to add a bunch of junk.
Yeah. So the thing about Premiere Pro editing is that it's non-linear, which means the timeline of your video, starting with the first second to 30 seconds to 1 minute, you can rearrange clips and cut them out and drop something else in. It's not like you have to re-record it straight through, so you can edit things. It's also interesting because videos have a time element, a timeline. So at 1 second, what do we see on the screen? What picture is showing? But just like in Photoshop, you can stack things on top. So you can stack a black and white color conversion on top, and that part when it shows will be black and white. And then when that stops, as it gets to second 5, when that special effect goes away, it's back to being full color. So you can stack things on top, and things happen at certain time periods. You want a picture to show up at the 1 minute mark, that's where you put it in. So it's more than just layers of things like Photoshop, like we think, it's also time from 0 to whatever. The other thing is that we measure time a little bit differently. It is hours, minutes, seconds, but then it's also frames. So anybody make flip books when they were little where you draw an animation and go like that? So that's all video is it's multiple still pictures just being shown really quickly. So the rate at which you record on your phone or your camera is probably going to be either 23.9 something something frames per second or 24 frames per second or 29 or 30 frames per second. So that's how detailed it is when the flip book goes by. So when you're measuring, you're actually going, okay, at the 1 minute, 5 second, and 4 frame mark, this is where something happens. 4 frames is like 1/6 of a second in a 24 frame second. Okay? So we're going to be looking at that. So this is your home screen. The get more out of it is kind of some new things that are going on. We're just going to X out of that. So if you haven't already, instead of saying next and going through this whole thing, just click the X up here to close that out. And what we're going to do is just look at kind of the workspace. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Aren't I?
You have to create a project first. It's not like officially open.
This window won't make me go bigger yet?
Once you create a new project, it'll officially open it.
Okay, well that's weird. All right. Okay, this is the home screen. So you guys are all seeing the different home screen. Once we start having clips or things that we've done, they'll start populating here like they do in our other Adobe family where we see our most recent projects over here. There are tutorials, which is nice if you want to play around with those sometime on your own. And then over here on the left, we have open a project, start a new project, or open a Premiere Rush, which like I said, that's more of like an app on your phone where you can do quick down and dirty video editing and then bring it into here. So that's your home screen. Rush, went through all that. Let's click on open a project. And we need to get to, oh boy, how are we going to do that? I got to think now. It's going to show up in recent. Nope. It's not there, it's not there. I want to get down to that root thing, and it doesn't show up here. No, no, no. Okay, I didn't think this one through clearly enough.
Can we not find the file and like right click open?
From the other way we were doing it? Yes, but I was trying to figure out how we could get it to show up as a shortcut here so that we could go this route. But yeah, you're right, we can go the other way, and we're probably going to have to. So cancel that. Go back to the Finder and what I showed you previously. So go, computer, hard drive, classroom in a book, lesson 1 folder, and then the lesson 1 PR Proj. And that is going to force it to open in Premiere Pro. But I wish we could get on the shortcuts in that first window that I showed you. Okay. Scratch disks. To open this project, must be set to your document folder. Would you like to continue? Yes. All right, we're going to come across all sorts of fun here now. This is important that you get this right and don't jump ahead, because you might be writing to the, I'm going to want you to back up because you're not on the same, does everybody else have the same screen I do? What I want to make sure that we do is where the location is. I don't want us saving to this classroom in a book. Okay, I don't want you overwriting the original thing. So I want you to say browse. And let's instead put it on our desktop and maybe make a new folder called Premiere. P-R-E-M-I-E-R-E. And then the name of the file, I'm just going to say Brenda 1 or lesson 1. I don't want it saving on the root. So if it opens all the way up, you could do a file save as and tell it to go there. So browse to your, or did you already to your, yep, okay.
So where
We just don't want it saving to that classroom in a book folder.
click on this.
Click on, okay, I can't read that. So
Oh, there's a
type-
browse. I didn't see this browse.
The browse button,
I
yeah.
didn't see
You're
that.
going to go to the browse button, and then eventually we're all going to hit this next block, which is normal. Finally something I expect.
That's-
Is everybody at this point or getting there?
Now we are.
You guys okay, Liz and Candace? Is it?
It didn't give me that option.
actually open.
Okay.
It didn't give me
Yeah,
that
it-
option for you to go to a different place and save it.
No, just.
It didn't have it.
I
Before when I opened it did give me an option.
Okay.
to
All
save it.
present
Just
stuff.
opened the
She'll be
screen
fine,
and
I
I click
just
cancel and
didn't
the
know
video
that.
pops up.
Yeah,
Then I
so
then
lesson
I just hit
one,
X
open
out
that
of it.
folder.
Yep.
And then double click on that. Then, say yes. And then browse, because we don't want it going through
Yeah.
that. And tell it to go to your desktop, make a folder called Premiere. And then save it as, instead of lesson 0101, your name lesson 1. Okay?
You say yes. You scratch it.
Yes, yep. And then you're gonna get the where you want to save it, and that's where you want to hit the browse button. And save it to your desktop in a folder that you call Premiere, a new folder. Otherwise, it's gonna save to that classroom folder for a file, and you'll never be able to get back to the actual original file.
Wait.
So the issue that popped up next is this whole idea I was telling you about, how the media doesn't live inside this PR project file. It's not all self-contained. It knows where it is and it tells you about a link. Kind of like in Photoshop or Illustrator when you guys would have fonts and you'd forget to embed them or something, and it would say, I can't find this font. I don't know where it is. And you're like, well, it's at my house. It worked fine at my house. Well, that's where it is. So, okay, you need to browse. Did you browse?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
on my desktop.
Okay, good. So, everybody at this point? Okay, so this is saying, I can't read it. These files are on volumes, Macintosh, media, lessons, assets, video, yada, yada, yada. What we need to do is go and find them because it doesn't know the path. So, if you click on the very first one, how it's highlighted, so you just have one highlighted, you can then click the locate button down at the bottom right. And I'm going to make this screen bigger because it's going to say, okay, the last path that I knew where it was, I cannot read that. Right here, the last path is volume, Mac HD, media, lessons, assets, yada, color work, 020 MP4. Okay, this is slightly a nightmare. Right now, it's looking for it in the classroom in a book lesson 1 folder. So obviously something's wrong. So we need to find in this mess here of a classroom in a book where we can find under assets, video and audio files. So click on the assets folder first. Then you can see up here in this last known path, it's in the video and audio folder. So we're going to open that folder.
You guys go down there.
Then it is in a subfolder called color work. So we got to find that one.
Where's that assets folder at, my friend?
In classroom in a book, it's right above lesson 1.
You can make that window bigger.
Oh, I can.
You can scale it.
So once we're in the video and audio files folder, we need to find the folder called color work and open that. And then the video that we're looking for is 20 MP4. So if you click on that one, that's the file it's looking for. And then we say, okay, it's going to link that one and everything else in that folder that it's maybe lost. So it's not like it just does one at a time. It's at least going to link all of those. So highlight that one that is the correct name, number 20, and then say, okay. And then it's going to go, okay, I just found a bunch. So you see all the checks on the side, and actually that took care of the whole mess. So once you have these on your jump drive, or wherever we're going to have them, maybe on your desktop. Once you reroute them and say, this is where they live now, go find them, everything's going to be fine. But every now and then you do have to relink your files.
What do I do? Yeah, there.
The one that we're looking for, which is, go look at your top line. What is the MP4?
0, 0, 0.
Okay, so find that one and click it once. Highlight it, and then go down to the bottom and say, okay, you located that file, and now it's going to find all the rest of them.
So wait, what do you?
Click the one that you're looking for.
This one?
And then okay. And now, where'd yours go? Okay, it's coming. Where did mine go? Hello? Where did mine go? The love of Pete. Where did it go?
It's behind the scenes of Brittany.
Yeah, mine. Okay. Mine might close this up.
Honestly, why am I having to go through this all again? Is everybody else working well and I'm the only one who's struggling?
Mine's crazy.
Video. Color work.
File
Go
also never
to-
saved to my desktop.
Okay. Okay, there we go. All right.
Sorry.
If you're at this point, it should say at the very, very top where it's being saved on my desktop, and my name of this is Brenda.prproject. You guys see that? Way up here at the very, very top. If not, or even if it does say that, in the Premiere menu system, do a file, save. And it's going to know the name and save over it, so everything's good. So now it's being saved to your desktop. This is what we have. It knows to go find these video files on the root of our computer.
As long as it says desktop, we're good.
Question?
This project has modified. This project has been modified since last time you opinion. Did you? Okay.
Go back to.
I mean, it's on my desktop.
I looked away
It's
and
on
it was
desktop.
gone.
You saw that somebody else saved.
I did see that.
I don't think it was me because I did open that one.
I didn't even open it, but I just copied it and pasted it in my desktop.
Only thing, well, I didn't get that one option for the window where I saved it. It
I didn't
opened.
either, so I
Oh,
copied
It
and
looks like
pasted.
it's
oh, I just put okay.
enormous because the camera's
I
like
just
the
don't-
way
It
it's
could have
like
been, but I didn't
curved
change
in the
anything.
lens,
I
it's
literally
like
just
it's
exited it
better.
out.
Let's see who did that.
What does it say? There's two people there now.
No, this is my.
What does it say?
It won't save that. I'm just curious. What's our hands?
I bet if you highlight
It's just
Okay. Whew. I'm going to turn out all the lights so there's a little bit more. It's still hard to see up here. Okay, we're going to tour the workspace. Is everybody like this? Are we all good? Okay. Ay. Okay, first thing that we want to do is look at all these different workspaces. Okay, up at the very, very top in that light gray bar, like I told you, is the root of where you're saving this file to and what the name is. It's on the desktop in a folder called Premiere, and it's called Brenda PR Project. Right underneath that are your different workspaces. You have a learning workspace, an assembly workspace, an editing, a color, effects. I just like, don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Yeah, you can keep looking through unless you all are crashing. Audio, graphics, and libraries. So this is just like workspaces in Photoshop or Illustrator, where if you're working on paintings, it loads all of your brush panels for you. If you're working on web layout, it automatically makes sure that you're in the RGB color space. So we're going to be primarily working in the editing and assembling, but every now and then we pop to these other workspaces. So if you're in the same workspace as me, which is editing, we're going to kind of take a look at this and try to understand what's going on. So this top panel on the left is the source panel. The top one on the right is the program panel. How these differ is that what you're seeing up here is if you choose one of these clips, it's going to load here and it's going to show you that one clip. Whereas over here, this is going to play your whole movie or your whole timeline. Okay? So if we go down to, and this terminology I'm just going to throw around, and if you're confused and I'm making assumptions, please yell and say something. This is the timeline, this bottom right section. So what we have is the original video and audio clips. So you can see down here that you have video 1, audio 1 right underneath it, right? V1, A1. A helpful hint is that underneath this timeline, you see a lighter gray bar with circles on it. That's kind of like your scroll bar left to right. So you can scroll left to right through the timeline. The other thing that you can do over here on the left, or right, I'm sorry, is scroll up and down through here. But you can actually make any of these strips, if you will, thicker, taller, so you can see more. So if you go down and kind of hover in between these, you can start dragging them up taller. If you can see what I'm doing. I would share my screen, but I don't know if that's going to help you because there's so much going on. Like, I don't know where you would put my screen. Are you guys okay? Which would you like? Should I try it or?
Maybe try it.
Try it? Sure. Let's see. Launchpad. Teacher. Who wants to give it a whirl? Because it's easier for me to do this. Amber, yes or no? Huh? No?
I'm just getting a glare from the window, so it's kind of just a little difficult.
Well, how about we try to fix that too? Let's make this room dark.
I mean, wait, actually,
Let's do that. We'll do... Nope. She says nope. Look it this way. Eventually, it's going to calm down. Okay.
Have an open air go.
Okay, so do you want me to try to screen share with you or not? Amber said yes? Or no?
I can follow up with Sammy.
Okay, so you said no. Sammy says yes?
Yes.
Okay. Emily, yes or no?
I'm good.
Okay, Andrea?
No.
Zach?
No.
Colin? Jordan?
No.
Nick?
No.
Sylvia? Leah? Kayla? Logan? Katie? Liz? What was that? Okay, and Candace? Yes. Okay, let's try this. Okay, no idea how big this is or what it's doing. But what I'm doing to make these thicker so I can see more of the image is I'm hovering over here in this left-hand panel between video 1, V1, and V2. And when you get that, when you hover between the two of them, also, by the way, for it to work, you have to be clicked into the timeline. There needs to be a blue outline around this window pane for you to be able to do anything inside it. So if the timeline is activated, meaning there's this blue outline, you should be able to hover between video 1 and 2 and stretch out these divider lines so that your video clip gets taller and you can see more of it. The other thing that I always forget and have to think about, a Command plus is making it taller also, and a Command Y is making it, or Y, minus, plus and minus is making it taller and shorter. Also, another interesting thing, whatever window you currently have highlighted, so I have the timeline highlighted right now, if you hit the tilde button, which is the one above the tab on the left or to the left of the number 1, whatever window box you're currently in fills your whole screen. So for the timeline, this may be helpful, but quite often it's easier to make this project panel on the bottom left bigger every now and then, but that tilde button, that wavy hyphen, will make whatever panel enlarge. Let's see. If you just hit the plus key on the numbers up at the top of your keyboard, or the minus key, you also make your timeline clips get wider so you can see them a little bit better, or get smaller. And sometimes it's helpful to get down to the shrunk down view that you're seeing because you want to see where the end is. And if you have it all huge, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll to finally get to the end of your video. So sometimes you just want to take the view down so you can see the end. So simple pluses and minuses are going to change that for you. So the audio tracks are nice and thick, or the video I mean. we probably want to do the same to the audio. And you can see there's not much detail there, but when you pull them down and make them a little bit visually larger, and then you actually start looking at them, you can see that you have a left and right, like a stereo track, and you can actually see the little sound line jiggle things. How many of you do audio editing? Or a bunch of people I know always have that hobby or interest, yeah. So that's something you're familiar with. Where the lines get darker and thicker, you know, more talking or noise is going on. And if it's really quiet and all of a sudden there's a big spike, that might be where somebody, you know, clapped or popped or the wind hit the microphone and it made some weird noise. So you can use those audio readouts to kind of tell where things happen also. So that is the timeline panel. This little blue thing at the top here is the playhead. Wherever that is located, that's going to show you right where that line hits. That's the point in the clip that's being displayed up here. So you can pull this playhead left and right to basically play the movie in reverse or forward. It's kind of taken a minute for it to all catch up, but this is called scrubbing the playhead. So if I tell you we want to do something at this point, exactly, I would tell you to pull your playhead or scrub the playhead to 28 seconds and 24 frames. And you would see those numbers right here, and that's how you would get to the exact same point as me. Okay, so it's telling you the exact readout over here on the left. Another thing you can do is to play your playhead is, and this is an easy shortcut, is just hit your space bar. That's going to start playing the movie, which this first clip doesn't have much movement. You can kind of see the leaves going. There's the wind. You hit the space bar, it pauses. Hit it again, it plays, pause, plays, pause. Also over here, while we're talking about it, this is the audio meter, so you can see the level of sound that's happening live. If it all of a sudden bangs up here and gets red, you know it's a really loud pop and probably something you have to deal with. Home. The home. Do you guys have home on those tiny keyboards or not? Do you have a home button? No? Okay. On bigger keyboards, there's a home button. That will pull you back to 0 to the starting frame, which is helpful also. Do you guys have a question? Or?
Yeah, I was wondering if you knew where this place was at.
If what? Oh, no, I have no clue. It's from the book files. It might say somewhere. Looks, I would say it looks like
One of those three.
Pennsylvania. I was trying to be smart and I couldn't think of anything funny.
Bahamas.
Bahamas, clearly. Siberia. Okay.
That's Illinois.
So this is your timeline. Again, your playhead, wherever you pull it, that's what you're going to see in the program monitor. Program showing your whole video. Source monitor, we'll see in a minute, just shows you clips at a time. Let's see. Let's go over to, I don't see any chevrons because we have a pretty big workspace here. Sometimes if you're working on a smaller, like a laptop, do you see how in this window, the source panel, there's source, effects, audio clip mixer, and whatever that says, I can't read it, metadata. Those are all individual panels that are kind of stacked up, and by clicking on them, we bring them to the front and we can work with them. Sometimes if you're on a laptop and you have a small view, there isn't enough physical space to show all these 4 names. So it'll give you those chevrons, those little arrows to the right saying, there's more here, you just can't see them. So click on that and then it'll give you a drop down of everything that's stacked inside here. Same thing for this window down here, which is quite large right now. At least on my computer it is. We have the project panel, if you want to look at that. We have a media browser, we have libraries, info, effects, markers, and history. Quite often, this is a lot smaller and you can only see a couple of these words, but then you'll see the 3 chevrons kind of warning you there's more things stacked here. All right. All right, tracks. These, in our timeline, these are all different. These are called tracks. So you have one video track and you can see at a certain point in time, specifically at 12 seconds and 21 frames, all of a sudden you have a second video. Something is layered on top of it. And just like in Photoshop, if there's no blending or transparency issues, this picture is sitting on top of this one. You're only going to see the one that's higher on the stack unless you have some change blending mode. So this might be video of a meerkat running around, but because this video of the mountains is on top of it, we never see the meerkat. It's covered up below it. Okay. All right. Okay, over here at the bottom left, let's everybody go and look at that and highlight that. With that blue line around the project media browser, that whole window, I want you to hit the tilde button to get it to go full screen size so we can just focus on that one window.
Yeah. Oh, I did hit it.
Okay, what's happening?
Like a movie. She had a big brain, so it's making bigger than
Tilde is the keyboard shortcut for it. Double clicking will work too. Everybody good? All right, this is our project window or project panel. And so this is kind of like, if we're thinking of this in the physical world, this is our folder called this project. Inside of it, we have, if you look at these icons, the very first one says, such small type, Desert Montage. And you guys see the little icon next to it, how it's different from the ones below it. Do you guys see that icon? That is the icon for a sequence. A sequence is basically just a movie. So that whole thing that we saw down here, this thing down here in our timeline, this is the sequence. It's a bunch of clips put together with some sound. That's called the sequence. This is the desert sequence, the desert montage. Then, whoops, I was in the wrong panel when I made that big. Then, in this folder, besides that sequence, we have all these individual clips. What do you think these are?
The video.
Yeah, those are all MP4 video clips. Here's the thing. Just because they are sitting in this folder does not mean that they were pulled into the actual sequence and used yet or ever. You could have 700 clips that you might want to use in here in the project panel, but until you drag them from there into the timeline, they aren't really part of your movie yet. Okay? So this is just a storage folder. Here's the 40 clips that I might use, and they're ready for me, but they're not literally in my timeline yet. So not all of those are necessarily used. I want you to look at all the different columns. The next one here in line is the frame rate. Okay, that is this thing. How many sheets go by in 1 second? How many of these are, not how many, do you see any discrepancies in the frame rates? Are they all the exact same flipbook speed or not?
No.
No. Most of them are, but a couple are 25s, right? Only 25 frames go by in a second. So if we actually use these, and maybe that's the next step in the book and I'm jumping, but I'll get there, we have to interpret them to flip by as fast or slow as our entire movie is going to flip. You can tell them to slow down or speed up or behave the way you want them to. So most of these clips are going to play at 29.97. Yep, frames per second. A couple of them are 25. This is kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. If you click on the frame rate column and then click the up or down arrow, you can arrange them, sort them like you would in Excel. So here are my two 25ers. I didn't have to guess or look for them or dig around. I just clicked on this column and organized them that way. If you click on the name column, it's going to put them in by alphabetical order. Media start and media end. Let's see. I think I'm jumping ahead. I am. We'll get back to that. The duration part of it is how long the clip is. So this 4th or 5th column tells you this is a 7-second, 13-frame clip. This is an 11-second clip. This is a 19-second clip. Video in and out we'll talk about. Also, something to look at is what is the physical size of the video info, this column. All of these are right now set up to be 1280 pixels wide by 720 pixels tall, which is good because that's going to be what your movie size is. They're all going to be that same size. Here's a problem that I have every year in this class when you guys are recording on your phones. I'll tell you, record this way, lengthwise. Make your movies the size of a TV, right? Left to right, wide. One person will always hold their camera straight up and down and shoot video that way, right? So it's not going to be the same frame size, right? It's not going to fit in there. So you've seen on YouTube, I'm sure, what it does is it puts your little strip in the middle, as tall as it can be, and then it puts black bars or something to the left and the right. If 3 of you are on iPhones, 1 of you is on a Galaxy, and 1 of you is shooting with a high-end digital camera, you might not be all the same frame size or frame rate, and that's something to think about too. They have to all match when you put your clips together. So we'll be talking about that as we keep going. Okay, that's kind of good for that. That is just your project bin. And the other thing, or your project folder, that's not a bin. The next item in the tab is your media browser. Think of that as the equivalent of having a Finder or Bridge inside here. If you want to go look for things on your computer, you can go into Media Browser and go, oh, I have that on my desktop in a folder called Premiere. That's where I need to go. So you can go through the Media Browser to find things on your computer. Jumping to the libraries, you guys all have your own Creative Cloud accounts. So if you put anything in your libraries in Illustrator, we did a few things this year. So here's some of my things that are in my Creative Cloud library. Info will give you details about a certain thing that you have selected. The effects, we're going to use these later on, but these are your things like lighting and special video effects. So video transitions is one of these folders. If you twirl that open, you'll see there's a ton of different video effects. If we twirl open dissolve, we'll see dip to black, dip to white, morph cut, cross dissolve. This is how you go from one clip to another, so they don't just abruptly end, how one kind of fades into the next, or it fades to black at the end. That's where we add those. This is in that effects panel. Is this overwhelming, or my voice is going? I've been talking for way too long. Huh? You don't have the effects panel? Okay, it might not just be loaded right there right now. Are you in the editing workspace up here? That could be part of it. Yeah. Or hit the tilde key to shrink it down. Okay, good. All right, then we have markers and a history panel. So history is just like in Photoshop where we can step back a few steps. So this is what is preset to be in this window when we are in the editing workspace. So take that back to the project panel. That's where that usually lives. Up at the top, the source, we'll see in a minute how that will load just a single clip. The next one over is the effect controls. So once we tell it to have a fade to black from that effects panel that we just saw, the second panel is where we tweak it and control it and tell it how long and how black and when to do it and when not to do it. So that's where we control the details of that. Audio clip mixer, again, when we're working on a specific audio clip, it comes up with your 2 channels, audio 1 and audio 2, so you can we can do sound editing right in Premiere. We don't necessarily have to go out to Adobe Audition. And then the metadata, that's where if you guys were to go in, or your junior producer, and they were to add some metadata, like this is a good clip, or this is the best clip, that's where you could go and see and sort by all the metadata that came with this. So if you wanted to see all the clips that were at 29.97, you'd come into the metadata and you could do some searching in here with the search bar. Take that back to the source. The other big thing is that all of these floating panels are resizable. So if you hover between them, you can pull to the left and the right. So having the source panel bigger while you're working on an individual clip may be helpful. I find that having the timeline taller, especially when you have lots of different tracks, I want this part to be bigger, and I don't care if my previews are kind of small because I need to see all these different areas. So you can move all of these around to customize your space. And another thing to give yourself more real estate in the timeline, which I think is helpful, is this project panel doesn't quite need to be this wide. You probably need to see a couple of these columns or at least be able to read the name, but you can definitely make this one smaller. And then your toolbar, that's what we normally see in Photoshop or Illustrator as being top left side. Toolbar now lives here. I don't need to waste all this space having a horizontal toolbar, so I'm going to take this and make it just a tall, skinny toolbar. That gave me a ton more room in my timeline, which is where you do a lot of your work. So your project panel, you want to be able to at least read the names for sure. Toolbar can be a tall, skinny thing, and then you have all this extra space over here. All right. Okay, there's some preferences that we're going to look at. So on the Mac, when you go up to Adobe or to Premiere Pro at the top left corner, you see preferences, just like in all the Adobe family. And we can look at the preference of appearance, so the appearance of our workspace. And here's the window that pops up. You can change the brightness slider. So what kind of background do you want? Do you like that old, because it's changed over the years, it's kind of funny. Like this brighter neutral gray used to be what all of the workspaces look like, and then they started having darker interfaces like this. So you can change, this is just your interface, the background and some other things. This darker gray tends to help you see colors better, so I'm going to pull it back to where it was or hit cancel, either one. Before you get out of this though, and if you did, just go back to Premiere Pro Preferences. Another one of my favorites in here is autosave, because things crash. And I tell you, this software crashes more than anything because it's really media heavy, right? Or RAM heavy. So how often do you want it to autosave in the background? I'm going to say, I don't know, every 10 minutes at least, because I don't want to be working for forever. Then there's some other options here. Save a backup to the Creative Cloud. So if this just crashes, if you have a backup every 10 minutes, that's fine. But what if your hard drive fails or something else? Wouldn't you be happy to have a backup on the cloud too? So I don't see anything wrong with having that bad boy selected, that it's going to save to your cloud. Maybe not now, today, for when we're just doing practice things, but when you're working on your actual commercials, why not? Why not be saving to the cloud? There's nothing wrong with doing that. And then, there's also this option next that's called the autosave, also saves the current projects. When this option is selected, saving or auto-saving will also create an emergency project backup. So it's a project file that is a copy of your current version with the same name. So it's not going to put that ending on it. What does it say? Recovered, I think. You know how when you get a backup. So if you're really working in Premiere for a client or for your job, I would have both of these turned on. Why not? Why not be safe and have backups of them? For sure, go with the autosave every 10 minutes. All right, from there, let's just say, okay, I would like to access my microphone. Sure, why not? Everybody else is listening anyway. All right, keyboard shortcuts. That's the next section and the last section on this chapter in your book. You can see on page 21 if you have it. There's actually a printout. Like if you were constantly using this, have you guys seen those overlays that you can buy that are like Photoshop shortcuts that are like colors that you overlay on your keyboard to help you? These are specific to Premiere. So if you're doing video editing, the faster you can be using just keyboard shortcuts, the better. So there's a picture of it in the book. One example that we're going to use a ton of, and that's easy to remember, is in and out points. So if you took a video for 2 minutes for your, the funny thing you're shooting for the class, and you're only going to start at the 31st second and use to the 50th second, you actually take that whole clip and you put an in point at 31 seconds and you put an out point at 50 seconds. And then only that part of the video is being used, but it's non-destructive. It did not throw away the 30 seconds prior or whatever after. So if somebody comes along and says, we need that footage, you can't edit that out. Like, think of how you can make people say things by editing out words they say or taking things out of context. Because it's non-destructive, you can say, I need a few more seconds at the front of that, and you just pull back your in point a little bit, or you drag out your out point. So in and out are 2 keyboard shortcuts, I and O, that are super easy to remember, and you're going to use a ton of them. The rest of them, who knows? It depends how much you work in Premiere. All right, that is getting to know our friend, the workspace. So we're done with chapter 1. Let's take a break again, and then we're going to do chapter 2, and hopefully it's going to just move faster because we've hopefully figured out any glitches. So let's take another 10-minute break, and then we'll jump into chapter 2. This file you can close. We're not coming back to this one. The nice thing in this book is that even when the chapters build on each other, it gives you a clean file each time, just in case your timing is off or things got botched up. So you can keep working from your file, but if you want to start with a clean file that they give you, you can do that as well.